during the Cold War in Afghanistan, when America was training and arming jihadis to fight the USSR, it would never have imagined even in its wildest dreams that one day the people it trained would become terrorists and wreak havoc in its own country. Buildings collapsing from Dio to India, skies everywhere, people fleeing from devastation and chaos, fear on every face, and hatred against terrorism in every heart. This picture is not of a battlefield, but of the glittering city of New York, which looked something like this on the morning of 9/11. 22 years ago, on September 11th, America suffered a terrorist attack that changed a lot for America and the world in 102 minutes. 3,000 people were killed in one stroke, more than 6,000 were injured, and this attack left a wound that scarred America deeply. After this, America launched a war against terrorism in the world that lasted for years, and under the cover of this war, countries like Afghanistan and Iraq were also destroyed. What was the 9/11 attack? Why did the 9/11 attack happen on such a big superpower America? How was this attack carried out, and who was responsible for this attack? The day of September 11th, 2001, started like any other day in America. It was morning time, people were going to work. The first person walking in the city was President George W. Bush. He had just arrived at a program at a school in Florida. But a series of strange events began when at around 8:46 a.m., an American Airlines plane crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. This plane was American Airlines Flight 11, which was flying from Logan International Airport, Boston to Los Angeles at 8 a.m. But just 15 minutes after takeoff, 5,000 people, disguised as normal passengers, checked the plane. One of these 5,000 was Muhammad Atta, who was trained as a pilot. This terrorist, who held Egyptian citizenship, was 33 years old and, along with his companions, entered the cockpit of the plane and took control of the plane from the pilot. He turned the plane towards the World Center and crashed it into the World Trade Center in front of everyone's eyes. The North Tower suffered a terrible collapse, and heavy smoke spread everywhere. During this time, U.S. President George Bush was about to start talking to students in an elementary school class. But then a White House staff member came and told him that a small engine propeller plane had just crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Bush remained silent with the children after hearing this news because he thought it was an accident and the pilot might have suffered a heart attack. Therefore, the president continued the class. Meanwhile, the landing operation was still underway at the North Tower of the World Trade Center when, 17 minutes later, another airplane collided with the South Tower of the World Trade Center at full speed. This plane was United Airlines Flight 175, which had taken off at 8:14 a.m. Just 28 minutes after takeoff, it was hijacked by 5 high-tech fighters. The pilot and co-pilot were killed and the plane was taken over and crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. This second crash occurred. Andrew Hall Card quickly informed President George Bush, who was also in class doing a reading exercise with students. A whisper reached the president's ear. The second plane is about to attack the second tower of America. However, the president remained calm. He remained seated in the class for about 5 to 7 minutes and continued the reading exercise. Meanwhile, a lot changed for America in these same 7 minutes. People hadn't yet recovered from the first crash when the second crash caused panic. Many people were killed, and an atmosphere of fear and panic spread among the people. Within 7 minutes, the whole world knew that 2 planes had crashed into America's tallest building, the World Trade Center. Meanwhile, another big news came that 2 more airplanes had been hit. One was American Airlines Flight 77 and the other was United Airlines Flight 93. Flight 77 was flying from Washington's Dulles International Airport to Los Angeles, but at 8:54 am, the plane changed course. Only 5 people were on board, about 31 minutes after takeoff. They forcibly entered the cockpit. The second flight, Flight 93, departed from New Jersey for California and was carrying hijackers. Both flights changed their destination and turned towards the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C. A short distance from Washington, the Pentagon, The headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense was a very important building in America from the perspective of national security and military power. Unfortunately, this building was the next target on the hijackers' radar. Therefore, the hijackers diverted Flight 77 towards the Pentagon, and at 9:37 am, the plane crashed into the Pentagon. This was the third terrorist attack on America, which clearly indicated that this was the result of a major terrorist conspiracy. Therefore, all its airports were shut down. Airlines that had already taken off were ordered to land at other airports. While the administration and rescue forces were trying to control the situation for America became worse when, at 9:59 am, a bomb exploded in the South Tower of the World Trade Center. Due to the horrific explosion, the entire building was engulfed in flames. The people of America were watching this complete devastation unfold in front of them. There was chaos, death, and sorrow all around. Many people had died. Passengers were terrified that it was an attack and they started fighting back. Everyone was worried that this plane would be crashed into an iconic building in America. To prevent this, many passengers started fighting with hijackers. According to the FBI, approximately 37 airplanes were called from Flight 93, which were following the sides. Meanwhile, people in the administration also started fearing the fourth plane being hijacked. The question of which building would be the attackers' next target troubled everyone. However, the attackers were targeting important and iconic buildings in America. Therefore, it was suspected that their next target could be the White House or the United States Capitol. The White House was the seat of the president, while the United States Capitol was the seat of the federal government. It was a legislative seat, that is, in a way, it was its parliament. An attack on it was like shaking the throne of a superpower, but this does not happen. Actually, the rebellion and courage displayed by the passengers sitting in the airplane resulted in the plane crashing in the fields of Pennsylvania before reaching its target. The brave passengers sitting in the plane were killed, but another major accident took place and many people lost their lives. Then at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center also burnt to ashes. A huge cloud of smoke engulfed the sky of New York City. Again, most of the people were killed, and the dreadful morning of 9/11 became a day of death when, in a single blow, America lost about 3,000 of its people and 6,000 people were injured. It became the deadliest terrorist attack on American soil till date, which also proved to be a big failure for its intelligence agency. Even America, which considers itself a superpower, could not save itself from the flames of Islamic Jihad. And bin Laden succeeded in his plans. The atmosphere of terror in America had become so intense that the president was forced to become even more constrained. Everyone was concerned that the White House might become the next target. That's why the president and his officials were on flights for almost 8 hours. They felt that there was so much uncertainty in America that air was the only safe place. Music, 9/11 was the terrorist incident that left superpower America shaken, amidst the Cold War years earlier. This story began in Afghanistan in 1979, where the United States began supporting Mujahideen fighters to remove that star from Afghanistan, giving birth to a terrorist group that would become America's biggest headache. Afghanistan's history has always been bloody. Its people have been fighting for their independence. In 1990, Afghanistan gained independence from indirect British rule. In fact, since the Second Anglo-Afghan War, the British had taken control of Afghanistan's foreign affairs. But after the Third World War, Afghanistan gained complete independence from any kind of restriction from the British. After this independence, Afghanistan proved itself to be king. Amanullah Khan was a very liberal and aggressive man. In 1926, he abolished the Emirates from Afghanistan and established a democratic monarchy in Afghanistan, and now he started being called king. During his time, for the first time, women were allowed to go to school and college. This was the first time that liberty, openness, and freedom were prevalent in Afghan society. However, Amanullah Khan's role in Afghanistan did not last long because Amanullah Khan was taking Afghanistan towards Western modernization, which some Islamic people there did not like at all. Especially the liberalization of women was not acceptable to the people there. During this time, in 1928, Amanullah Khan went on a tour of Europe, taking advantage of which a Qatari leader named Habibullah Kalakani took advantage of the absence of the royal army, and with this, Amanullah Khan he was arrested and sent to exile. In 1933, Zahir became the king of Afghanistan and remained so for the next 40 years. During his 40-year rule, Afghanistan remained quite stable and progressed. In 1973, while Zahir Shah was on a foreign trip, his nephew, Muhammad Dud Khan, with the support of the paramilitary forces and his communist and leftist friends, staged a coup and usurped his throne. After this, Zahir Shah was forced to flee the country. This marked the beginning of an era in Afghanistan. Dud Khan, a communist, had strong ties with the country. Dud Khan was also the military head of Afghanistan for a long time and had been training Afghanistan since his time. Furthermore, the USSR had made significant investments in Afghanistan to establish its presence in South Asia. Now, when Dud Khan's government came to power, the USSR openly launched an offensive against him. Dud Khan established the Republic of Afghanistan and himself became the president of Afghanistan. Dud Khan formed his government with the support of the USSR, but he avoided liberalizing Afghanistan and making it a target of the Cold War. To save himself, he began to establish relations with America, but this began to irritate the USSR. The Communist Party of Afghanistan, the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, also became displeased with Dawood Khan. The Communist Party of Afghanistan, the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, attacked Dawood Khan's royal palace over this very issue, killing him and his entire family. After this, Nur Muhammad Dawood became the president of the country, but a similar incident occurred with Dawood Khan. His own party members robbed him of his sense of responsibility. The 1978 siege of the nation was orchestrated by Hafiz Allah Amin, who was the deputy prime minister of Afghanistan. His relations with Amin were good, and since he had orchestrated the assassination of the USSR's backed government, the USSR was not about to sit idly by. The USSR did not want to let Afghanistan escape its clutches at any cost, and for this reason, on December 24, 1979, the USSR landed hundreds of fighter jets and thousands of soldiers in Kabul. However, the USSR achieved a landslide victory in Kabul, and with that, they also reaped the rewards by assassinating PM Amin. Was declared the new president of the country, but after this, 25,000 soldiers of that city did not return. They believed that a communist government should be established in the whole of Afghanistan. On the other hand, the Mujahideen had started a jihadi war. They saw a threat to Islam from that city and were ready to give a full blow to the USSR. Initially, it was the USSR-Afghanistan War, which was against the Islamic Mujahideen. However, soon Pakistan, China, and other Middle Eastern countries also joined the Mujahideen to give a tough fight to the USSR and drive them out of Afghanistan. Pakistan and especially Saudi Arabia were supporting the Mujahideen in this jihadi war to remove the USSR. Now, a conflict between the two powers supporting the communist and Islamic ideologies in Afghanistan had started. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia started providing regular funding to the Mujahideen. On the other hand, Pakistan also started helping the Mujahideen group in every way. Thus, in Afghanistan, the Islamic Mujahideen in Afghanistan started fighting against the Soviet Union. Due to the Cold War, America always wanted to reduce the influence of the Soviet Union in South Asia. On the other hand, America had suffered a lot due to the Soviet Union in Vietnam and Korea. In such a situation, America was looking for such a support where it could teach a lesson to the USSR, which America got an opportunity in the Soviet-Afghan War. In such a situation, America started supporting the rebellion happening in Afghanistan in the name of religion. America not only influenced Afghan fighters to take refuge in neighboring countries like Pakistan, but also promoted the Soviet-Afghan War as a war for Islam. America started inciting Islamic boys from all the Islamic countries to join the so-called Holy War of Afghanistan, and started giving them huge weapons, money and intelligence support. This is where the jihadi movement started, which fought for stability in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, which was funding Islamic countries to promote Islam, started fearing that if the USSR confluence spread to other countries, it would pose a huge threat to Islam. Therefore, many such countries like Saudi Arabia and Islamic boys from Middle Eastern countries joined the Mujahideen militants, and wealthy Islamic families began funding these militants. One of them was Osama bin Laden, whose sole desire was to implement Sharia law throughout Islamic countries, and to resolve inter-Islamic issues within Islamic countries through the teachings of the Quran, without interference from anyone else, even the superpower America. However, the USSR finally officially withdrew from the Afghanistan War in 1988. However, by then, the US had also established good relations with Afghanistan. The Mujahideen, who had been fighting against the USSR with US support, now began fighting against the US. Osama bin Laden believed that he did not need to interfere in the Gulf War, and after Iran's attack on Iran, bin Laden's hatred for it grew even more. In a letter to America published in 2002, bin Laden said supporting Israel's expansion is a crime, and America is at the forefront of this crime. This is why bin Laden or Al-Qaeda will surely punish America for it. Osama bin Laden, driven by his radical Islamic thinking, came to Peshawar, Pakistan, to fully support the Mujahideen militants. For this reason, Osama bin Laden also formed the Aqid organization, whose aim was to bring about a global Islamic revolution and continue jihad. Although their initial goal was to oust the Soviet Union and the communist government from Afghanistan, in 1989, when the Soviet Union exited Afghanistan with a humiliating defeat, Osama bin Laden's attention shifted to Iraq. When the US invaded Iraq in 1991, Osama bin Laden saw it as a blow to Islam. This was also because bin Laden disliked America's growing presence and influence in Muslim countries. In particular, he saw the rise of American imperialism and American Indo-Israel in Muslim countries like Kuwait, Iraq, and Somalia. Furthermore, America's support for Israel in his eyes, this was evidence of hatred towards Islam. As a result, Osama bin Laden became anti-American. Previously, Laden had been fighting alongside the US against the Soviet Union, but now he turned against it. By then, the Taliban, a pro-Islamist group, had established a government in Afghanistan. Therefore, Osama bin Laden went to Afghanistan and, using this country as a base for Al-Qaeda, issued a fatwa against the US in 1996, calling for the withdrawal of its army from Saudi Arabia. The US had been operating military bases in Saudi Arabia since the Gulf War. Bin Laden issued a similar fatwa against the US in 1998. To take revenge on the US, on August 7, 1998, bin Laden bombed an embassy in East Africa, killing more than 200 people. During this period, bombs were dropped in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. This is where Osama bin Laden found the motivation to wreak havoc in America. Did this terrorist, sitting in Afghanistan, create a new history of America? They planned 9/11 the day before. Music. The immediate effect of this attack was that it united America. On one hand, people, together with heroes, carried out rescue operations and saved lives. At the same time, at 8:30 p.m., President George Bush addressed the nation and made it clear that there would be no distinction between the terrorists who carried out this attack and those who surprised them. Music. This attack not only devastated the lives of ordinary Americans but also filled people with a sense of justice and anger. Soon, American President George Bush declared that these terrorists belonged to Osama bin Laden and the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda, which was running the Al-Qaeda organization in Afghanistan. After this, the American president asked the Taliban to hand over Osama bin Laden to America. However, the Taliban rejected this offer, and when America was asked for proof, it launched a war against terrorism, in support of which NATO countries also supported America. This war was named the War on Terror. It started in Afghanistan. On October 7, 2001, America, along with its network, entered Afghanistan and started a war against the Taliban to capture Osama bin Laden. In Afghanistan, America not only targeted al-Qaeda hideouts, but also pushed back the Taliban. During its investigation, America also found many such video tips which made it clear that Osama bin Laden had carried out the 9/11 attacks. The FBI also found in its investigation that Osama bin Laden himself had trained the 19 militants who had hijacked the plane, and then gradually they were sent to America in small groups. Some of these terrorists had also received training in flying planes. All these terrorists were living in America with valid documentation. Then, on October 26, the American Congress passed a protective act whose purpose was to catch the 9/11 terrorists. This act gave the government immense power to spy on anyone suspected of terrorism. This doctor was given the power in America. It was passed with full support to stop terrorism. Meanwhile, to find Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan and destroy the al-Qaeda network, America spent money like water and also deployed a huge army and the best military. However, in front of America's power, al-Qaeda had to go underground and the US military killed many terrorists. But still, al-Qaeda remained out of America's reach for many years. Meanwhile, on the possibility of links with al-Qaeda and many terrorists, America started its military operation in Iraq and continued the war there for many years. The 9/11 attack was not only a terrorist attack but also a slap on the face of the world's best intelligence agency, that how it was done and how it was carried out under the nose of the FBI. Under this, in the year 2002, President George W. Bush also appointed a commission to report on the 9/11 attack. When the report was submitted after 2 years, it was found that the biggest failure in this attack was of the Air Force, who already knew that the two hijackers were Nawaf al-Hajj and Khalid al-Madha as a militant of al-Qaeda. The SI was also tracking these two militants when these two operatives went to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia to attend a terrorist committee meeting. But the SI either gave information about these two terrorist suspects to the FBI nor added them to the watch list of the Security Department. This resulted in the head-rated man entering America very easily with his real ID. For several days he roamed around in Malaga like a common man, and then he carried out such a big terrorist attack in broad daylight. This was the result of one big negligence of the SI, for which 3,000 Americans had to pay the price. To catch the real culprit of 9/11, America fought a war in Afghanistan for 10 years, and after investing 100 rupees crore, he succeeded in capturing Osama bin Laden in the year 2011. In 2011, his Navy SEALs team located Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan, and killed him in an operation at Connaught Place. The remark and people of the world and the United States have conducted Napoleon. Killed Osama bin Laden. The death of such a big terrorist became a big victory for America against terrorism, but the effect of 9/11 on the common American citizens was long-lasting. The reason for conducting 9/11 was the increasing interference and influence of America in the Middle East. Apart from this, Aladdin was taking the help of his region for the atrocities being committed on Muslims, but after 9/11, both these things were seen even more. He not only invaded Afghanistan but also got military operations conducted in Iraq. Apart from this, there was a rise of Islamic phobia in Western countries, especially America, and terrorists of the Middle East were caught. Muslim citizens and South Asians had to bear the brunt of this, against whom crimes and discrimination started increasing rapidly in America. Muslims living in America were not only discriminated against but also taken action against in many places. Even Indian Sikhs living in America were often killed after being mistaken for Muslims. The growing fear among the American public gave rise to such extremism against Muslims that in many places Muslims were lynched and killed, and human rights violations continued to increase on a large scale. This resulted in more people turning to terrorism out of frustration and anger due to discrimination. Although America avenged 9/11 by killing bin Laden, the price for this had to be paid by Afghanistan and Iraq, where many innocent people lost their lives. The political and economic economy of the country became even more unstable, and Afghanistan remained only a battlefield, but today it is ruled by the Taliban. With this, we bid you farewell. That's it from my side on this topic. If you found this video interesting or insightful, Please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update about the forces shaping our world. Also, do let me know about your views by commenting below. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and see you in the next one.